Good morning, DJ and PK. Happy Valentine's Day to you. It is Friday the 14th. Valentine's Day is here, and so is the All-Star break for the Jazz. They lost last night 120 to 116 in overtime to the Clippers, gave up a 20-point lead. Big loss. They needed that. Pelicans won, so the Jazz pick up a game on the Pelicans in the loss column, and this is serious stuff. They need to get a top 3 pick. There's no question about it. All right, well, we'll get to that a little bit later. First, we've got some college football. We're going to talk to Steve Bartle. He is our Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports. All things Utah football right here. All right, I've had it with them Cougars. Now we're talking Utes. Yeah. We got my Ute man, Steve Bartle, Utah Utes insider for KSLSports.com. I've known him for a number of years, and he's been with us almost a year now, doing a fine job and everything Utah, that's for sure. And this, starting it off with Utah football, wow. You know, for years, Utah is like, it's been like the oil rigs, man. They're just going up and down and doing what they're supposed to do and pumping out the oil, and machine rolls on, right? And all of a sudden now, to our surprise, things got haywire, and they made a bunch of changes, which, man, they made changes. Kyle obviously has made a number of changes offensively to the coordinator position, but this year, I think in terms of intrigue and unknown and mystery, I don't know that I've had a season that I have this much all sorts of stuff. Combined with the word excitement, too, because I'm excited to see what they can do. What is your impression as far as them being able to, I mean, I think they'll have a bounce back, but just how everything is going to come together, particularly and obviously from the offensive standpoint?
Yeah, that's the big question, PK. When you make a change at the offensive coordinator position, when you almost completely overhaul your quarterback room.
Right. Yeah.
There are 5 new faces in that room.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And, it's going to be a pretty big change in terms of the offense and the scheme, and, going from Andy Ludwig's pro style to Jason Beck, who is a creative mind. I've been watching a lot of film of the New Mexico offense and getting a feel for what he likes to do, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
I saw them play 4 or 5 times last year, and I was always entertained.
Yeah, always entertained. And I think, so bringing in Jason Beck and bringing in Devin Dampier, where there is this wholesale change almost on the offensive side of the ball, there are 3 big things that I think you can build on this offseason, right? So the relationship between Jason Beck and Devin Dampier, right?
That's huge.
It's gigantic in making this sort of transition from, a legend like Cam Rising at Utah with what he did and what he accomplished, and now bringing in a new quarterback with a year of 2 years of experience, but a year under Jason Beck and what he did there. The offensive line coming back intact. And what that's going to mean for the rest of the offense, right? Jason Beck talked about this in that offseason kickoff press conference, that the most important position is quarterback, and the next most important is the offensive line. And so you bring back all 5 starters, you bring back the depth that you have behind them, you feel good about that group taking another step forward next year. And then I think, too, with Jason Beck, last year Utah wanted to be a little bit more pass-centric with Cam Rising. They built around him. Now you can get back to what you do best, and that's running the ball and making that the focal point of the offense yet again. Even though, last year it turned out to be that way, this year you're going to have all offseason to gear up for that.
It's going to be funny. You might have Dampier teaching the guys the offense himself, because I would assume that he knows it like the back of his hand, because those two are a tag team. And that's an interesting situation. That's the new version of college football, where you bring in the coordinator and then he brings his quarterback and his quarterback is immediately eligible. That's what gives me hope that the offense literally can hit the ground running.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the big priority for Utah, was finding, I shouldn't say the big priority, but it was a hope and a focus in their offensive coordinator search, right? It started that whole process. There was a lot of talk about Ben Arbuckle from Washington State.
Right.
Well, who was the quarterback there? It was John Mateer, who was one of the top quarterback prospects in the transfer portal market. Those two end up a package deal at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You end up with Jason Beck and Devin Dampier. Similar, dynamic there in terms of the dual threat ability of Devin Dampier, and that relationship, again, is just going to be so important, so vital for Utah as they make this transition in a new offense, because, Devin Dampier is going to be able to, hold guys accountable in terms of how they're executing and raise the standard, more so than just having a different quarterback learning the offense for the first time.
You speak of that offensive line returning. What round does Fano go in?
Boy,
because he's playing in the NFL.
He is going to be an NFL tackle for quite some time. He's got a great opportunity to go round one with what he has, with the step that he made from year one to year two. He was a freshman All-American, but he made a huge leap going into year two and made the biggest gains where he was weakest in year one. He became an elite run blocker, and that was kind of the concern with him was, did he have the frame? Did he have the tenacity to do it? He was always so athletic and technically sound in pass pro, but he took that step as a run blocker, and I think he's really put himself on the map. Pro Football Focus had
all
him,
those stats,
as one of the top offensive tackles, and so he'll be in the mix for day one draft talk all offseason.
I would think.
And two, PK, just to mention, Caleb Lomu, another offensive tackle, is going to, similar trajectory as Spencer Fano, freshman All-American this past year. Big expectations for him going into year two. So not only do you have Spencer Fano, that you hope makes that leap, but Caleb Lomu too at left tackle performed really well in his first year as a starter on the blind side. You hope that he can make a similar leap that Fano did from year one to year two as well.
Yeah. Dampier, he's a guy who can beat you many different ways, right? He's very electric.
Yeah.
The very first game, I watched him because of Bronco. I covered him when I worked for a newspaper years ago. I think all of us, it's going to be fun to see what he does at Utah State because now he's in our backyard and we can watch him closer. Mm-hmm. But I can remember very first game against Arizona. And, Arizona came in with a lot of hype. They won the ball game, scored a ton of points, and we knew that they were going to be able to throw the ball with their quarterback and receiver, and that was fun. But watching Dampier just run around almost like he was playing in a air against that defense, the U of A could do nothing to contain him. And one of the things that I think it's overrated, but Utah is scarred because of injuries at quarterbacks, obviously. What do you see behind him?
So you have Dampier as the starter, and you feel good about that, right? And the focus is going to be protecting him, keeping him upright, as always. It's going to be interesting behind him, right? Because Utah does bring back Isaac Wilson, who it didn't go as planned this past season in 2024 for him. The expectation coming into the year was it was going to be a redshirt season of sorts, right? That he was going to get mop-up duty throughout the year and that sort of stuff, and he'd be able to redshirt. But he was forced into action, and it didn't go as planned, didn't go as anybody hoped for him. But still, he played a lot of ball, gained a lot of experience, learned a lot of important lessons. And so to get him back with that experience, I think is big. But then you've brought back Nate Johnson, former quarterback here a couple years ago, dynamic athlete, similar to Devin Dampier. Maybe not the same passer, but certainly in terms of the athletic qualities, you like that. There. And then they also brought in another quarterback transfer backup from Oklahoma, who Jason Beck's actually recruited while he was at Syracuse, Brendan Zerberg. And so you bring him in, and those three are going to be the primary focus of that backup quarterback battle. And I think the hope is, that Zerberg, Nate Johnson can handle that backup spot and allow Isaac Wilson to redshirt. I think that would be ideal with Devin Dampier having 2 years left. Isaac Wilson still is a talent. He's got the arm talent. It's just he's got to catch up in terms of his mental processing, his understanding of what he's seeing on the other side of the ball, and that sort of stuff. And that just comes with time.
Yeah.
That just comes with reps. And so, that's what they have. And then they brought in a couple freshmen that, we'll see what they have, see what they can bring to the table. But it's going to be those three primarily. And I think the hope is that it can be Zerberg and Nate that
So Nate will be strictly quarterback?
No, he's going to be kind of a unique weapon.
Man, he can fly.
And they're going to use it. I think that's going to be a focus under Jason Beck, is using him more as that kind of unique chess piece, right? To split him out wide as a wide receiver, but he's still going to be, classified as a quarterback. But I do think they'll use him in some pretty unique ways.
And then that running back position, they don't return anybody, but they get the Washington State kid who is somebody.
Yes, he is. Yeah, 750 yards as a freshman, at Washington State.
In a run offense or a pass offense.
Pass offense. And it was not, it was pass offense, and the offensive line, blocked like it too, right? He did not run behind a great offensive line. Watching film on him, man, I've fallen in love with we talk so much about running backs having instincts, right? I think it's more reactionary skills, right? How quickly can you read and react to what's happening in front of you? And that's where Wayshawn Parker really shines for me in terms of his ability to see the line of scrimmage, what's happening, and make decisions off of that. He's, a no-nonsense runner. He's not gonna, chop his steps. He's not gonna waste any sort of movement. He's a one cut back and get upfield as quickly as he can. I think that's going to work really well with Dampier in this option offense. Him coming here with Mark Atuaya, following him from Washington State.
That's also big.
That's big too, right? Similar to Dampier following Beck, having that relationship with that coach is just going to, again, similarly allow him to hit the ground running.
Steve Bartle, our Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports, joining us. This offense has an opportunity to look like nothing that we've really seen at Utah
in quite some time.
Yeah, I can't even recall when. I'm trying to run through. Nothing comes to mind. So the question then becomes, how much does the head coach allow it?
Yeah, I think that is something that everybody is asking, right? How much is Jason Beck going to be able to actually, how much freedom is he going to have in calling his offense and what he truly wants? And I think, if you're Kyle Whittingham, we've seen him become a little bit more, what's the word? He's adapted with the times. He still, wants things executed in certain ways. He still wants, we see him revert to the run game, especially this past season. And I think there was a reason for that. And I think for Beck, coming here, you want to come here knowing that you're going to have the autonomy to run your offense because it's your baby.
And the kid you brought with him.
Right. And to have that, I think
you shackle him, it won't work.
Right. And I think having Dampier is going to allow for Beck to have more freedom.
You'd think, yeah.
I think.
That's why I'm excited. All right. Now, don't you worry, BYU Cougar fans. We never leave you out. Nah, we love you. Coming up next, we're going to go to Steve's counterpart, and that's Mitch Harper, who has the same role for KSL Sports, only covering BYU. Stay with us. We'll get to that next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Good morning, DJ and PK. We'll get to the Jazz in a bit. We just talked a lot of Utes. Well, in the interest of fairness, what are we going to do? We're going to talk a lot of Cougars. Of course we are. We're going to talk with Mitch Harper, who is our BYU insider for KSL Sports. This guy knows just about everything as far as it goes with the Cougars. Talking some Cougar football with Mitch Harper. Joining us now will be Mitch Harper, our BYU insider for KSL Sports. At 9 o'clock, we'll turn it over to Steve Bartle. Now, we don't want those guys. We got to make sure we separate because those guys are rivals. So we got to send Mitch out one door, and then we'll bring in Steve in the other door. Getting those two together, it's like Patrick Mahomes Sr. and John Rocker. Did you see all that?
Oh, okay.
I don't know what was going on there. Well, I think that might have been staged. I don't know. But those two going face-to-face, nose-to-nose in New Orleans last week, I guess.
It'll be like John Chaney, John Calipari back in the day where we're just fighting. That's what we do in press conferences.
I'll kill you!
Right after Harlan's going off, me and Bartle had our own exchange.
Yes, that'll be rough. You're two big guys. I'd like to actually see that. See who can win. Maybe we could do that for home field advantage. So, Mitch is in for the next hour or so. Let's start off with the AD thing since that's fresh. You know, Tom Holmoe, I was talking to him, communicating with him last night, and we're just going on. And I can remember when he got the job. You know, he was interim director. They had a couple of guys there. A guy named Peter Pilling was also there. And then Tom went out, got the job. And one of the things he did shortly thereafter is he called up me and Gordon Monson, and we met him at a Mexican restaurant in downtown Provo upstairs, and we met him for like 3 hours. And he's a media savvy guy, and he wanted to talk to us. Both of us were working for the newspaper. Both of us were doing the radio. Eventually, I obviously gave up the newspaper and concentrated on the radio and electronic stuff. And so just remember, this guy's sharp. He's a people person, and he's going to do good things. And then when he got done, he came over and was talking to the meeting. And he looked at me, and he says, "Man, we've been doing this a long time." And I said, "We have." And, you know, job well done. But there's a new day. It's the way it works. I think as I look at it, I don't know what they're going to do. But I think if you go by resume, I don't see how they don't give it to Brian Santiago.
I'm with you, PK, and it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, Brian Santiago, he was involved in setting up a lot of the marquee coaching hires that are in place right now with Kalani Sitake and Kevin Young. You know, Kalani Sitake's long-term extension, Brian Santiago was involved in that. And getting Kevin Young as the BYU basketball head coach, which was a dream hire for BYU basketball, you can give a lot of credit to Brian Santiago on that and his connections in basketball. And I remember sitting in Kevin Young's office this summer talking about it, and he gave a lot of credit to Santiago. So he's got relationships where you just kind of keep the machine going with the athletic department if you hire Brian Santiago. I think a lot of fans would maybe say, you know, maybe go outside. Maybe is there some Kevin Young type hire that's outside of the BYU bubble that could make a real splash? But, you know, maybe continuity would be the move to just go forward. And, you know, because Tom Holmoe's legacy, I think, will be the fact that BYU's fan base and interest grew somehow when you were playing the likes of Savannah State and San Diego in basketball, yet the fan base, the money, the commitment, it all grew. And that's pretty remarkable when you kind of take a step back and see and think about, because those were tough times in Independence and WCC. And he kind of, Holmoe even alluded to some of that when years 5 and 6 in his tenure as the AD, he's like, I don't know if I can do this job. And but he got on the other side and got BYU to the places that they were dreaming of for so many years.
When you have a situation where you're going in to replace somebody successful, and by all accounts, Tom Holmoe was successful. I don't think anybody can doubt that. And he was a bridge builder himself. That I think in those situations, you don't have to take and decide based on the outgoing person. But I think the outgoing person's input is extremely important, and I'm going to point to a couple of situations, good and bad. I don't think, going back 25 years, that the administration at that time really took the input from Lavelle Edwards on what he thought, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, I don't think the choice that they made was Lavelle Edwards' choice. If he were given the choice, I think he goes in a different direction. And as sad as it is and unfortunate for those involved, that hire didn't work out. It was a disaster. Doesn't mean they're not good people, but it just didn't work out. And there's a multitude of reasons. So that's for the bad. Then I can cite one from the good. And boy, it really turned out great. And this is going back in 2004, 2005. Chris Hill hires Urban Meyer. And Chris then brings in Urban, and Chris and the people around him, was one other person in particular who was super close to Chris, working in the athletic department at the time, told Urban Meyer, we strongly suggest that you retain Kyle Whittingham. And Urban, to his credit, he could have brought in anybody he wanted. He was the boss when it came to that, right? And he listened, and he retained Kyle Whittingham. And they go 22-2 with an awesome defense. And then at that point, when Urban leaves, he's leaving from a position of power and success. So then it's a no-brainer to give the job to Kyle. And imagine if, I don't know what would have happened, but suppose Urban would have said, nah, I'm bringing in my own guys. I want my own guys. But he didn't. He listened to the people who were there and took their counsel and retained Kyle. And whatever Tom says, whichever way he wants to go with this and what are his thoughts, I think they should take that into serious consideration. And I can't say specifically that he's going to officially 100% endorse Brian Santiago, but what I know he did say at the press conference is Brian Santiago is my right-hand guy. He's my wingman.
Yep.
That's pretty strong endorsement. I took it as.
I'm with you. I thought the same thing, and he's given a lot to Brian Santiago, and it's been, a lot of build-up to this revenue-sharing era that's about to take off this fall. Brian Santiago already has a clear understanding of the direction that BYU wants to go with that, and BYU is always wanting to avoid risk. And, you bring up a great point about Kyle Whittingham because, in that time, imagine – BYU tried to get, Kyle Whittingham as a defensive coordinator, when, Gary Croton was the head coach. And it was a smart move by Utah to retain Kyle Whittingham because now, obviously, Utah's went on to have so much success, and I think they'll have probably a bounce-back year this season. Brian Santiago, I think, would do a really solid job in the AD role at BYU. He's been there for 2 decades, just like Tom Holmoe. And I think he would bring a lot of energy to the position. He's competitive, and he's got strong connections to, a lot of influential people at BYU. And, you see him sitting courtside at basketball games, Gifford Nilsson, Travis Hansen, Ryan Smith. I mean, Danny Ainge, he's got a lot of connections in the hierarchy of BYU greats and notable people in this athletic department. So I think it would make a lot of sense. And but I think BYU should just take their time and turn over every stone because these sort of moves don't happen. I mean, Shane Reese, the president at BYU, it's the first time a BYU president has had to find an AD since Samuelson. And that's been, that covered an entire presidency. Kevin Worthen didn't have to hire an AD. So this is a big move. And Holmoe even laid it out yesterday that a lot is upcoming. And, when you're seeing reports yesterday that the Power Four conferences are considering hiring a CEO, and this sport could change drastically in the next 12 months. We don't know what direction it's going to be. And I think an underrated aspect to the next AD is positioning BYU for whatever the next phase of college football is.
And it's coming.
It is. And it's like the Big 12 is great, and it was a dream landing spot, and it worked out perfectly for BYU. But you've got to stay a couple steps ahead because when 2031 rolls around and that media rights deal is done, what's next for the Big 12? And BYU's got to be in a position to maintain access to whatever the championship tier of college football is.
They have to. Yeah, it's imperative. And they want to. And, their NIL thing there, we'll switch a little bit and move on. We had on Rondo Felberg, and I asked him about what did you think when you saw that quote in the ESPN story, "You're not going to outbid us." My wife had to come and pick me up off the floor when I read that quote. I mean, I get that they got to do it, but to be that brazen and bold, and Rondo said it himself. And I was talking about that with you.
Yeah.
That comment, that was wow. You're not supposed to say it, and not only did that what's that name? What's his name? Jörg Lillenquist?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lillianquist, yeah.
Lillianquist. And not only did he say it, he said it in the most bodacious manner possible.
We're not going to get
Put your
outbid.
checkbooks away. You ain't outbidding us, suckers.
Hands down, we win.
Yeah, whatever you got, we're going higher. So back the bleep off. Wow.
Shocking.
It really was. For BYU, which is like you used to just thought it was a badge of honor to have Lavelle Edwards be in the bottom half of the whack in terms of pay. We had, towards the end of his life, we were doing a golf tournament. I think it was Haloti Nada had a golf tournament. He's a local guy, obviously played at Oregon. And we're at a Thanksgiving point, DJ and I, and Coach Edwards comes over, and we were joking about that coach's calling thing that he would do after the games, which, get out of town. Nobody would think about doing that now, right? And he looked at us, and he smiled, and he says, well, I had to do it. They're paying me $75 a show, you know? And we laughed. He laughed. It was all funny. It's like, well, yeah, they don't pay anything. And so $75, sure, you know? And now we're not being outbid. Man, how do you think that was received? I think if I'm a fan, I'm thinking sweet. But I'm wondering among the leadership, did they get a little queasy about that?
No question. I mean, because BYU, that was a shocking quote. And, because BYU has never operated, they've always done more with less, but they've always had more than they put off. And, BYU was always tried to run in the black and they never go into debt. And to have that sort of comment is just shocking. And yes, that was a shocking comment for BYU and its approach. And it ties into last summer, when CBS Sports, they polled anonymous college basketball coaches and who's got the biggest NIL war chest. And college basketball coaches believed that BYU was in the top 3. I mean, this is just, night and day stuff from where BYU sports has lived. But I think a lot of it circles back to Tom Holmoe and, Brian Santiago, too, where, they're not going to be public and say, we've got all these resources and this boosters, but they want to have BYU be at the highest levels of college athletics. That's always been their pursuit. Years ago when people would say, I don't know if BYU sports are going to survive. It's going to be like BYU Idaho. It's going to be the new Ricks. Yeah. That was never the case. I mean, there's a lot of competitive people in BYU athletics. And, maybe there were some administrators back in the day who did have that. But from the president now, the advancement VP, whoever the next AD is, I mean, they want to win at the highest levels. And now that they understand, and maybe the brethren also understand that, hey, this money thing is okay. It's all above board. Let's go chase this thing, because the exposure that they got from football this past year, and honestly, the exposure from getting a commitment and signing from AJ DeBansa, I mean, that's stuff they haven't received in years. I mean, despite all the successes that Holmoe experienced with the athletic department, there were not many national showcase moments for football during independence. They just were out of sight, out of mind in November.
Yeah, for sure.
This past year in the Big 12, I mean, even Santiago told me it's been a game changer for BYU being in the Big 12. And so I think there's still this competitive desire to throw more money at this thing and take it to higher levels than ever before.
All right, well, now we're even. We did the Utes, we did the Cougars. What's next on the agenda? Of course, it is the Jazz. Is it not? Yes, it is. We'll get to that next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Good morning on this Valentine's Day. This stormy Valentine's Day. Stormy weekend. Stormy yesterday, huh? I understand it was miserable for some of you driving home. I'm not on the roads at that time of day usually because I go in the morning, obviously, and then go home a little earlier than most folks do. So I was home. But we got some Jazz basketball for you to talk about right now. The Jazz, in overtime, lose to the Los Angeles Clippers, 120-116. Jazz had a big lead, 20 points, but could not hold on to it. Our guy, Norman Powell, 41 points. Harden, 32. Powell with 41, and James Harden with 32. Both those guys going to the free throw line a whole heck of a lot. Each score 15 for Harden, 13 for Powell. Jazz sat Kessler. Well, they got a nice performance out of Filipowski before he fouled out. And he had 20 points, 10 boards. Not bad for a second-round pick. Collier continues to play well, 16 points. Way too many turnovers, though. 8 assists and 7 turnovers. 7 turnovers is not acceptable whatsoever. 4 steals is pretty good. And then, let's see, our man Keontae George. Oh, my gosh, man. 3 of 12. 2 of 7 from 3. Keep firing away, buddy. There you go. Now the Jazz are off until next week. All right, let's get you inside locker room with the Jazz postgame right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's your morning after recap after the Utah Jazz fall to the Los Angeles Clippers 120-116. DJ and PK, I'm Ben Anderson. Big game from Kyle Filipowski. He scores a career-high 20 points and grabs 10 rebounds. Moving into the starting lineup in place of the injured Walker Kessler as the Jazz lose their last game as they head into the All-Star break. Norman Powell, 41 points for the Los Angeles Clippers. He was terrific, 5 of 10 from the three-point line, as was James Harden, who scored 32 points, 10 rebounds, and added 7 assists. James Harden played the entire second half and overtime, so a pretty gutsy performance on the second night of a back-to-back from the future Hall of Famer. Let's let you hear from Utah Jazz head coach Will Hardy after the team's loss.
The guys competed their butts off tonight, and the truth is that the math was way against us in that game. They roughly took 20 more shots than we did. It was 16 more field goals and 10 more free throws. Turnovers killed us tonight. We had 26 turnovers. 16 of them were live ball. Their physicality bothered us. We had a hard time delivering the ball against the switch, but I can't knock the team's effort. I think the guys are bought in, competing, sticking together. That's a really good team we just played, and I thought we gave ourselves a chance to win. We had a couple looks at it there at the end. Obviously, coming down the stretch, I liked the matchup with John on Bogdanovich. We didn't want to call timeout and let them sub. We ended up getting a look from Key and then got the rebound and timeout, and I thought that we executed pretty decently on the underneath and just couldn't get a shot off at the end. But I'm proud of this group. I think the way they're fighting every night, we're playing a lot of different lineups all the time, and they're sticking together and really competing. So they deserve a lot of credit. They get some much-deserved rest for the next week, take care of their bodies, and clear their heads a little bit, and we'll get back to work.
You started Flip tonight at center, and wondering what you hope to see from him, and then what you did see from him.
Yeah, I think Flip gives us a different look. Obviously, early in the game, some of the spacing, the popping, knocked down some threes and pulled Zubac away from the rim a little bit, and they started veering his pops, which was good for us in general. We also try to use him as a playmaker, coming out of halftime, having him handle some pick and rolls and have guys set screens on Zubac and see if we could create some confusion. I thought we executed pretty well there, as also. Flip's going to continue to work on some of the stuff around the basket defensively, being earlier to the spot and using more of the verticality plays, maybe some charges here and there, because, he's, like I said, I think it was after the last game, he's not 7'2", so he can't make those plays over the top. And that's just part of the transition that he's going through, is that he's a rookie that is probably used to being one of the bigger guys on the court in most games he's ever played in, and that's just not the case at this level. So it's something that we're going to continue to address, but overall his toughness and his skill with the ball helps us a ton, because it gives us a very different look offensively. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it speaks to the character of those guys. I told them before tip-off we need 2 hours of focus. I should have said 2 hours and 40 minutes of focus, but I misjudged how long the game would take. But they've been great. Like they really are a group that just comes every day and does the work. They're all bought into their own growth individually. They're all bought into the growth of the team. It's a privilege to coach a group like that because they make it easy because I don't have to spend much time motivating. Like, we get to coach the basketball. It's not spending 90% of our time trying to get guys to play hard. There's moments where you have to rev them up a little bit, but that just comes with the territory. For the most part, though, I really don't find myself having to coach effort very much.
How do you want to use the break, and how do you use the break?
Yeah, this is a good chance to take a couple days away. Fill your cup back up, so to speak, and spend time with loved ones, friends, family, relax. We don't have a game day for a little bit, which will be nice, and get some rest, get some sleep, take care of some of the banged up parts of their bodies, and really it's a good time for some mental rest. And it's nice, it's like when you work on something for a while and you step away for a bit and you come back and you see it with sort of fresh eyes again. I think that's what we're all going to try to do. I can promise you I won't watch the film tonight, and we'll all just take a break and recharge a little bit. And then when we come back, we know we have that final push of the season, and we want to be ready to ramp it back up again.
Mike got played in 2 games today.
Correct.
What do you see from him in team and just overall being on the two-way having to throw the team?
Yeah, it's hard to do. He obviously expended a lot of energy in the game this morning, but Micah's very professional. He understands what we're trying to accomplish on both ends of the ball. And he is a really competitive guy. 12 and a half minutes. Micah will disagree with me for saying this because Micah generally disagrees with me, but that's probably about all he had in him in tonight's game after playing as much as he did this morning. So it does shine a light on the life of a two-way. That's rare, in the era of load management. I think playing 2 games in one day is probably like a felony, or I don't know how you adjudicate load management, but I would assume what we did today was bad. But yeah, Micah's ready to play. I mean, if he came in here right now, he'd be like, no, I could have played 30 minutes tonight for sure, because that's just the kind of guy that he is. He's ready to go. So he also didn't know that he was playing in the second game until early afternoon. So probably, give him a lot of credit for being able to refocus. I'm sure he was going through kind of a post-game routine after playing this morning, and then he has to jump right back into a pregame routine, which is not easy to do.
26 accomplishments for you guys tonight. What do you contribute that to? Just like for you, back, or what do you contribute?
I mean, it was kind of the usual grab bag. There's a couple of these, a couple of those, but I think in general, their physicality really bothered us. Their switching bothered us. It made it hard for us to deliver the ball against the switch. I thought there were some times where we tried to make passes that were a little bit too tight. I thought there were times where we just played into spaces that didn't provide us opportunities to create an advantage. As far as the youth, when you look at it, we had 11 of them between our our young guards, but it would be hard for me to point at that because we've been the beneficiaries lately of some really high assist-to-turnover games from those two guys. So I feel like it would be unfair of me to say, like, oh, yeah, it's because they're young, because, they were young yesterday and they played great and took care of the ball. I think it's just you play a different style of defense. The reads are different. So if there is an element of youth that comes into it, it's the being able to switch your brain. We played 2 games in a row against one team's defense, and then you come into the back-to-back, and it's a totally different style. I'm not sure we handled it great, but I didn't see like one thing happening over and over again, which I guess maybe makes it a little harder to diagnose. Thanks.
There you go. Coach Will Hardy as the Utah Jazz fell to the Los Angeles Clippers last night, 120-116. Big performances up and down the Utah Jazz roster. Lauri Markkanen tied with Filipowski for the team's leading scorer at 20 points. Back-to-back nice nights for Lauri Markkanen. Isaiah Collier continues to look fabulous. The rookie had 16 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, and 4 steals. Did have an issue with turnovers, 7 giveaways, part of 26 giveaways from the Jazz, including 16 steals by the Los Angeles Clippers, a big reason why they lost this game in overtime. The Jazz led by 20 in the first half, but slowly let that trickle away as their three-point shooting cooled off in the second half, and you saw the Clippers get the victory. Let's go down to the locker room, let you hear from John Collins.
Well, John, what does it say about this team on a back-to-back to play how you did yesterday and to come out and fight like this, even before a huge break, but just the heart that you guys have?
Yeah, a lot of heart, a lot of youth, a lot of togetherness. Obviously wanted to go out on the break with a win, but very good team over there. Just sometimes circumstances in the NBA can be very tough, but I love the way we competed tonight and really just didn't give up and really made it a tough effort for them to try to win the game.
Coach says he never has to really coach effort or waste time on that. He gets to coach the basketball court more often with you. What do you think of that when you hear that?
Yeah. I understand what he's saying, even though he definitely gets on us from time to time. What he really wants to focus on is obviously letting us hoop. And I feel like when we handle that side of the basketball, then it allows everything else to just flow. And that's when we start getting into that good rhythm.
John, how important is it to get away for a little bit, have this break, and what are your plans for the break?
Extremely important. I'm just going back to Florida with my family, but always great to just detach. This league takes a lot away from you, and obviously a lot of dedication goes into this league, so it's always nice to have a balance and detach a little bit, get ready for the second half.
At the halfway point of the season, you're encouraged to be a mentor for the young guys. You can't help but be proud of these guys and the way they've developed, and just what's your impression of how they have developed?
Oh, no, it's obviously growth is something that doesn't happen overnight, man, but for me to be here from start to where they are now, and obviously have a helping hand and just seeing them develop, it's been amazing. I love watching our younger guys develop. I just love being a mentor, a veteran, or whatever you call it, a listening ear to our young guys. So we're going to continue to encourage them in any ways I can, and always celebrate when they do well. Shouts out again to Keontae, second-time Rising Star, and Isaiah as well has been doing his thing. Kyle had a great night tonight again. So just love from all our young guys and just want to continue to see them grow.
Thanks, John.
There you go, John Collins, arguably the best story of the first half of the Utah Jazz season. He had 17 points, 7 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 assist, and 1 block. Was the only Jazz starter last night with a positive plus-minus in a team-high 41 minutes. Just 5 of 11 shooting, 2 of 7 from the three-point line, but had to play up a position with Walker Kessler out with a thumb injury. So John Collins was terrific last night. Excited to see what he's able to do over the second half of the season. Keontae George followed up his 20-point, 10 assist, 7 rebound performance over the Lakers with a 13-point, 9 assist, 4 rebound game against the Clippers. Did not shoot the ball well. 3 of 12 from the floor, 2 of 7 from the three-point line, but did get to the free throw line 6 times where he knocked down 5 of 6. And overall had a solid game. Like I mentioned, the 9 assists were a nice boost for the Utah Jazz. Off the bench, here's what Keontae George had to say about the performance and going into the Rising Stars Challenge tonight.
Heartbreak when it comes to this one. You guys have the commands on this one for a long time. What happened down the stretch?
Just turnovers, late game turnovers. Obviously, they had guys kind of rolling, so down the stretch. Got to get stops. When we get stops, we're able to play faster. So, I just think the late game turnovers kind of hurt us a little bit.
Yeah. Will continues to say nothing but good stuff about the way you guys progress, the way you guys play together. You keep yourselves in close games down the stretch. It's just really nice to hear how highly he thinks of you.
For sure. I mean, any chance we can get to put ourselves in a position, like we did the past 2 nights, and kind of get a feel of what it feels like, the physicality piece of it, the execution piece of it, paying attention to details. So, it's great for our group to continue to learn and watch the film and, see what we look like in those moments because, we've been in those moments a couple times this year and, I think we've looked, great. So we got to continue to, build that camaraderie and have healthy conversations, down the stretch so we can, ultimately, come out with the win. So, we don't really, obviously we lost, but we got to continue to look at these as small wins. So at some point we keep building and building and building. We've been in this situation before and, we understand how to change the outcome.
Does the All-Star break come at a good time, a little R&R, just a chance to get away?
I'm blessed to be able to go to All-Star Weekend and play in the Rising Stars game. And then, after that, I'm going to get a chance to, go somewhere warm for a couple of days and kind of reset and be able to lock back in. But, the break is always good for not just the players, but for the staff, everybody around the organization. So it's good to get a break, but we got to understand we're still in the season, so I'm going to still continue to stay sharp, even though it's still a break.
I should have led with the Rising Stars. I'm sorry about that. Everybody, John, Will, everybody gave you a big congratulations. How cool is it to represent this team again?
Like I said, I'm just blessed to, represent the Jazz and represent myself and my family. Like I said, being a part of All-Star Weekend is a big-time blessing. Not a lot of people get that opportunity, so I got to understand what that means and not take it for granted. So, I appreciate them, showing me out. And, this is just something to build off of. So, just grateful for the opportunity every single time.
Kyle had his career high tonight. What did you just see from him today?
Obviously y'all don't see it, but the amount of work that he puts in the morning after practice, and the willingness to continue to get better. Obviously, I've known him before he got here, but the constant conversations that we have and what we talk about, and, not only how he can get better, but how I can get better. And then obviously the shot is starting to become consistent. So when his shot is falling, I feel like he can get to the paint anytime he wants. His touch around the rim is great. And he can pass the ball, so he got a complete game. So he kind of just showed, that complete game tonight.
What's it like to play against a couple guys like James and Norm Powell? They play that guard position at a pretty high level in the NBA.
It's always good to compete. Obviously, James, all-star, so just to kind of share the court and I wouldn't say starstruck, but just having the chance to obviously go out and compete, and I'm not thinking about none of that during the time, but when I can go back and watch the film and kind of see how he's manipulating the game. At the end of the day, I feel like in this league, it's all about learning. How fast can you pick up on things? How fast can you be able to make an impact in the game? So, like you said, obviously Norman Powell, having a great season this year. So, it's always good to, compete with them. We played them 4 times, right? So, it's always good to have the chance to compete and have the chance to play basketball at the end of the day.
Appreciate it.
There he is, Jazz sophomore Keontae George, going to be representing Team Chris Mullen tonight in the Rising Stars Challenge. He's going to be playing alongside San Antonio Spurs rookie Steph Castle, Trace Jackson Davis, Memphis Grizzlies rookies Jalen Wells and Zach Edey, Dalton Connect of the Lakers, the Charlotte Hornets, and the Lakers after that trade got rescinded. So good team tonight in the Rising Stars for Keontae George. We'll see if he's able to advance because the winner of the Rising Stars tournament tonight gets to play on Sunday in the All-Star Tournament, the first ever 4-team All-Star Tournament. So keep an eye on that tonight as you watch the Utah Jazz, who fell to the Los Angeles Clippers 120-116. They are 13-41 as they head into the break for the All-Star weekend. Jazz are tied for the worst record in the Western Conference with the Pelicans. I should say they're tied in the win column. Pelicans do have 42 losses, Jazz sitting at 41. But the Jazz also tied with the Charlotte Hornets, who have 13 wins on the season. Only the Washington Wizards have fewer wins than the Hornets, the Jazz, and the Pelicans, all sitting at 13. Washington's 9 gives them a healthy chance to have the worst record in the NBA. Unlikely they make up those 4 games over the final 30 games of the NBA season. When we come back, more DJ and PK. Stick around. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, that's all the sound from the Jazz locker room across the street at the Delta Center, and now they are off. Before we get to what's trending, I got to tell you, DJ and PK proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. What's trending? Get you caught up on all that's going on in the world of sports. Stay with us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.